Welcome to Life Coaching for Dance Studio Owners. Each week, we talk money, mindset, and self-care to help you live a more peaceful life and lead a more profitable business. Let's get started. Well, hello. I'm so excited today to have Brittany Milan on the podcast. And Brittany and I have been friends for a few years. We met in the Gold Alliance, and what inspired me to have this episode is she posted online that she wrote a book, and it's called Overcoming Catastrophic Thinking. And I said, oh my gosh, perfect topic to share with a wider audience for more dance studio owners, because so many people struggle with their thought patterns and anxiety and different things. And I think what a good topic to continue to talk about, share, and not be afraid to reach out for help if that's something you need. So Brittany, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you and talk to you.
So can you share a little bit about your dance studio journey and kind of what led you to want to write the book?
Yeah, so I started at my mom's dance studio in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, a small town here in Minnesota of like 7,000 people. That's where I grew up. Our dance studio was built onto the back of our house. I didn't realize at the time, but it was the most convenient thing in the whole wide world. I wish I had that now. But I studied there until I went to college at the University of Minnesota and got my degree in dance. And then after that, I started dancing and performing with a variety of people in the city's area here, and found myself teaching more and more. Um, First, just to make more money to be able to perform, but I found and was reminded that I love it a lot and I was quite good at it. And I think it was partially due to the fact that my mom was also a studio owner and a teacher, that I was like, I'm not going to do what she did. Not because I didn't necessarily want to, but I thought I was going to have my own journey. And I did have my own journey. I now have a studio in Bloomington, Minnesota. This is our 13th year, which is my lucky number. And so Bloomington's a much bigger city. I have different, challenges and different awesome things that get to happen because of that, and more opportunities. And yes, so I have been now teaching alongside my husband as well, who's our tap teacher. So I was kind of looking for more ways for myself just to make more income on the side. And I was like, what else can I do with my time? Not that I didn't have enough to do. I just am kind of similarly to you, super ambitious. I feel like you're very ambitious, Ginger, but ambitious in the fact that like I feel like I got to do something more. Like I have a little time, what can I do with that? And so I found different avenues to kind of teach myself how to do it. And as I was learning how to write and publish a book, it kept coming up. What was the thing that I wanted to write about? Ended up being the thing that I needed to write about, and it became kind of my own therapy through it. It wasn't actually like it just happened. It was like an accident, right? It was like a very nice, beautiful accident. I used once the boys were in bed, I was like, okay, I sat down and it became my work time, but it also became very therapeutic. And um, it's funny because my therapist originally had told me that part of what I needed to do to understand catastrophic thoughts is to learn about them. And at the time when someone tells you you have to like do anything really, but study, like someone's like, you got to study this. And you're like, oh, I know, I don't want to study it. I want you to help me. That's not going to help me. In my mind, I thought that, but then I found myself actually having to do that in order to write this book. And I've learned a lot about it, and it has helped me a lot, and also been able to talk to other people about it. So yeah, it was a beautiful accident, really.
Mm. So what exactly is catastrophic thinking?
Yes. So when I originally went to my therapist, and because I get very anxious, and it happened, and it maybe got worse as I had my kids. It's always been a part of me since I was younger. I remember having crazy nightmares and worried about the people that I loved that were going to die,
Mm.
and that was like the worst thing in the world to me. But my way of thinking and thoughts are, I can be walking at the mall and the boys will be next to me, and I can't have them go anywhere near a railing because I can just imagine and I can fully see it happen before my eyes of someone even bumping them, an accident, and they fall. And then
Mm,
my brain is, while we're walking, this is happening. And then my brain is trying to figure out and analyze what could I do if that, when that happens, because I'm thinking it's going to happen. How am I going to save their lives? And so it was getting to be so bad for me. Like everything I did with them, like I didn't want to go anywhere. Everything I did with
mm,
them, I could oh my gosh, the word. I could believe that the worst possible thing would happen,
mm.
because that's just where my mind always went. And so I talked to her and I was like, this just is, it's so hard for me to live with. And she's like, oh, well, you're a catastrophic thinker. I'm like, oh, there's actually a thing. I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was something. I just thought I just was a huge worrier, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It just got worse as I had kids, but it is something. And as I learned about it more, like my thoughts are more about like people getting hurt or something bad happening to the world. And so then I have to figure out how to save all the people in my life. And
Mm,
it's very like, and it'll happen to me in real life, in a daydream, and it'll happen to me in an actual dream at night. And so it causes for me to have like restless nights and feeling like, oh, I couldn't sleep at all, even though I did sleep. It just felt awful. And then daytimes, yeah, it just, my anxiety levels were so high. Um, so that's where my thoughts, like I have a catastrophic thinking. But other people have, through the book and through writing it, I've learned
hmm.
that there's other ways of actually having that. And, more or less, you kind of sabotage your life in some ways of, you believe something bad's going to happen in the relationship with someone else or whatever the situation might be. So you just automatically kind of sabotage things because that person had to have cheated on me, or that person, is lying to me. And so you end it without even fully giving anything because you
Mm.
think you're protecting yourself, but you're overanalyzing it. And so I've learned a lot about different ways it affects people. So,
Yeah. And I know people close to me where kind of like you said, like, oh, they worry all the time, or like it seems like they're just in this
hmm
negative thought pattern, but having a word for it, having a phrase to understand it and to hear other people talk about it, I think is the first step in like realization that, okay, it's not just me. And
yes.
maybe there's something we can do about it in just recognizing that, hey, this is that road I'm going down. And you kind of hinted at something that you know that this is kind of hindering parts of your life. And I think that's
hmm
where it goes from like, oh, you're just like being realistic and thinking about things to wait a second, like now I'm not enjoying the fullness of life and how this can lead us down that road. So I know there's lots of studio owners, especially in this kind of, whether it's tied up in anxiety about, you know, students dropping or financial things or something's going to happen. I have to be in the acro classroom because someone's going to like break their neck. Like it can
hmm
really permeate so many different areas of our life.
Right. And COVID didn't necessarily help with any of that, right? We all learned so much that like anything can happen. So then I feel like for me too, that just like took things up another notch of like anything can happen. So I have to be prepared. So yeah.
Yeah. COVID gave us evidence that, see, I told you something.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
Why do you think our brains default to this worst case scenario?
I don't know. I don't know. I think back to when I first started having these thoughts, and when I would, for me, it was, oh no, I don't want anything to bad happen. So for me, it's a matter of if I think of all the horrible things and I talk to people about them, then the likelihood of it not happening, I don't know. I feel like I would decrease the likelihood of it happening by me thinking through all of it and talking about it. And then at least I'd be prepared. And that's really
Yeah.
silly, but that's kind of where my brain is at. And it's one of those things too, like now we have so much knowledge when it comes to like what to do if like this is thought I think about this all the time. What to do if you get in a car accident and your car goes underwater? What would you do? You like, and now I feel like we have so much knowledge because I've seen so many different things, or you know, I don't know, like all these different shows on SVU and all these things that show all
Yes.
the things that could potentially, which are I love, but I'm like, I don't know if it's good for my thoughts, you know.
Right. It
But
gives you more
you
ideas.
know, and so you know how to get through all that, right? So I'm like, okay, I would take this and do that, and um, and so like we have all that knowledge, but I'm like, is it actually like making it worse for me because I have all that knowledge? Then I'm constantly thinking of now I have to be prepared for all these situations because I know A, B, C, and D versus I don't know. When I was younger, it wasn't as complex, my thoughts. There were just definitely more I was worried about people passing away or something bad happening, but not to this extent. So I feel like all the information that we get, all the negative things that happen in the world or on the news or all that, for me, I can't watch too much of it, especially if it is real, because it just kind of then comes into my brain of thoughts of like, well, that could be me. It could always, it could, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. For me, I think it's just a almost weird because knowledge is power, right? But
Right.
at the same time, for me in my situation, this kind of knowledge has created more ideas of possibilities, and then more ways for me to have to think of how to correct, how to fix, how to prepare if something were to happen.
Yeah. Hmm. I can think of so many examples in my mind of how this comes up. Um,
Yeah.
and I think part of it is it's a protective measure, right? Like our bodies
Hmm.
are reacting to, hey, there's a danger. We have to protect ourselves or our loved ones from danger. And there's an element of it that's like, this is actually for our own protection, right? Like, if we were the cave people, like, we don't want the bear to eat our
Yep.
baby. So we have real fears, real things.
Right.
But then where we are in our lives now, it's like, okay, how does that actually balance out with probability versus possibility
Hmm.
of those things happening? Yeah.
Hmm.
What are some strategies that someone could use when they're noticing these thoughts are coming? And what are some things that they could do?
Some of it is just bringing yourself to the present, and as simple as looking around you and seeing I think it goes see five things, hear four things, touch three things, smell two things, and taste one thing. Or like so
Mm.
you're taking all these like so you're like, I see the ceiling, I see the floor, I see so your brain is actually changing everything about how it's thinking. For me, that works, and it kind of just puts you into present moment, and then all of a sudden those thoughts kind of go away. That is kind of like when I have a really bad moment. This is where how I can like center myself. Um, other other ways is like journaling about it for myself, and getting it out because I have to get it out in some way. So if I journal about it, then or if I talk about it to somebody else, then it helps me get it off my chest, and then it's a less of a thing. Um, and those are like again, those are two examples of how
Yeah.
I feel like are best help me right now. It's I've gotten a whole lot better, but I also do have to take something for my anxiety as well, and that helps me a ton to just be able to breathe through everything. And yoga helps a ton. Yoga really helps me a lot. Hmm.
Yeah. So it's really like a multi-pronged approach, right? Like
Hmm.
figuring out things that work for you because maybe it's something for your mind, something for your body, maybe it's something
Hmm.
where, you need therapy or a medication that
Hmm.
will help you through that
Hmm.
period. So that's really
Hmm.
good.
My therapist originally told me to, well, just think about the situation you're in and think about the worst possible thing and how likely of that would be to happen. And I'm like, I don't think that helps me. Like I think what she was trying to say is it probably would never happen. But I'm like, but that's my problem is I go too far and think, yes, it could, because it could happen to me. And so then she went the route of like having me, the more I learned about what it is to have catastrophic thoughts, and the more I learned about all of that, then me understanding actually helped me feel more control over it too. And so that was another thing. Writing this book helped a lot.
Ooh, you touched on something important, having control over it.
Yeah.
So many times we get caught up in our emotions, and whether it's fear or, anger or whatever, and it feels like that's taking over. But when you're
Hmm.
able to do something about it, like getting that control back, like we are emotional beings, but that's not all that we are. Yeah, that's really important.
Hmm.
Mm. How can we build resilience when faced with setbacks, like losing a bunch of students or negative review on
Mm.
Google or an unexpected financial struggle? Is there anything that you could say maybe we could use to help build that resilience?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like I've gone through like all those things. And
Mm,
so when I have gone through all those things, um, I guess for me it's not as scary as like, I don't know. It's a little bit easier because it's a little bit more black and white. Meaning, you know, there's two people out the door for whatever emotional reason. Now I just need to make sure I get two more people in the door kind of thing. So for me, is looking at it in a very black and white way of my husband always says it's like it's just about the numbers. It's just about like it has to be more factual instead of emotional. And if I can take the emotions out of everything, then I do a much better job of handling those situations. It's super hard. Everyone knows that because it is a big part of who I am and my passion and my heart. But I think for me, if I can look at the facts and then base my decisions or base my next moves on the facts of what happened or facts of what needs to happen, then it can just feel like less of an emotional thing. And then I use those and when the emotions that I do have, I try to use as like motivation to like, I'm not gonna let this get me down. I do have that ambition where I want to control the situation, right? Same thing. I want to be able to say, like, I'm going to be better after this and I'm going to find a way to make this work. And so I try to use my emotions in that way and then look at the situation in a factual way of like, what do I need to do to make this a better situation? Hmm.
you touched on some of these before, about what are some daily habits or routines that can help improve our mental wellness
Mm.
and resilience around this?
I think just even having a routine, helps
Mm.
a lot. And for me, if I'm drinking enough water, I always have like a routine of like, if I drink enough water, then I can have my like drink for the day, whatever it is. Usually, if mine is a Diet Coke, I don't drink coffee, but if I drink enough water, if I get my water in, then I can go down to my Diet Coke. Um, Having some way of releasing um, my energy and getting myself to sweat, because that is a huge part of therapy for me. I do think like whether it's some kind of a strengthening class or yoga, because even though I do move in my dance classes when I teach, it's not the same thing. It's not for myself. So making sure that I'm doing something for myself is important, or taking time for myself. For me, those are the most important things. I feel like I'm happiest when I'm drinking enough water, which also then gets me in this right mindset of like, then I'm going to make better choices, healthier choices if I already start that way. And then I'm going to move my body enough so that I don't know, once I feel like my blood is flowing and I use that time while I'm working out to kind of get through all my whatever thoughts that may be bugging me. And then when I'm done and I take a nice shower or whatever, I just feel so refreshed and ready to go. And for me, I think about, do you have any pets?
Not
And
right
have you ever
now.
followed,
I've had a cat
okay,
and a
well,
dog.
I always think about because Caesar Milan. I have, his show hasn't been around forever, but he's the dog whisperer. And he always talks about like dogs, how if you don't exercise them or give them time to work through all their energy, it creates this like negative energy that's built up in their brains, and they don't know how else to get it out. And so then they become aggressive. And I think we kind of all are that way. We're all animals in many ways, right? And so I think about that. Like if we don't find a way to even go on a walk or move our bodies or get our blood flowing in some way, we have this negative like energy that's built up and hasn't been released. And I don't know. I think about that all the time. It's just such a good, I don't know. I love animals and I love pets and I feel like we're all connected. So I could go on with that. But yeah, he has a good way of explaining it for dogs anyways.
You know, you touched on something so important. And for those of us who are teaching in the classroom, it's yes, we're moving, we're dancing. It's not the same as exercise or something for ourselves. It is not the
Hmm.
same impact on our minds and our bodies as us going into a space and we're moving for ourselves. We're moving and not in the mode of educator. You know, it feels different if you take a class at a conference or a convention or just at a local thing or yoga, like you
Hmm.
said, versus I'm standing in front of a group of kids. And people used to say like, well, I understand, like you must get so much exercise because you teach dance. I'm like, you have no idea, I spend a lot of time just walking back and forth and fixing feet. Like it is not the
Hmm.
same as full out moving, emotional release, let it all out on the
Hmm.
floor. So I think it's important for us to remember to do that in a way that works for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could do more of it. I think it's, yeah, we all came to dance because we loved to do it at some point. And so, and my body still wants to do it and still loves to do it. So giving the time for it to do it. And yeah, I love the challenge because my brain also doesn't work that way as far as picking up choreography anymore.
Mm,
I love the challenge though to put myself in that situation, and then it kind of gives me a perspective of what the students get, from me. Because I'm the one giving all the information all the time. My brain, that part of my brain is just not active. So being put in that situation is fun and a challenge, and I want to be able to do that more. But right now, I feel like when I'm at home, I find my way of just taking yoga classes or any kind of exercise classes that's going to push me is the best way to do it. And then finding ways that when I do take the students to convention, I'm going to at least take one class or two classes if I can. So
yeah. um as leaders who also have staff and students, what can we do to kind of make space for them and what they might have going on as well? And
I feel like maybe because I have dealt with what I've dealt with, I can see it in other people much easier. And so for sure, I've had so many students that have different types of anxiety, but I have an ability to relate to them. And so for me, when it comes to my students, I find different ways to talk to them and relate to them. And I think for them, literally just having somebody to talk to who has been through it before really like changes everything for them. And all of a sudden they feel so much better. And it's not, maybe not happens overnight, but I've had kids who have been fine and then all of a sudden go through like a stage fright thing, and they can't do it anymore. It's like, okay, let's talk through this. And what is it? And I am definitely not a therapist or, I don't, but I only can speak about my experiences and what helped me get through it. And so I feel like I do feel really lucky that I don't know, I've always been very connected to children, but I can also see when something's not right. And so I I kind of am like always making sure I make eye contact with them, always making sure I say hello to every single one of them because I can see it in their eyes when something's not right. And then I take the time to talk to them. And then if that seems still off or they're not willing to share, then I do talk to their parents because I don't know, I can sense it. As far as staff goes, I think, you know, it's a little bit harder because as we get to be adults, everyone is a little bit more, I feel like a little bit more closed off to like letting people in, especially those people who I maybe just see once a week, because they come in and teach once. But we have once a month meetings where we do like check in and I ask how they're doing. I give them an opportunity, whether or not they're going to open up. It's a little bit harder, but I will say the ones that I see the most are, again, I can connect with better. And so I can usually sense something's up. So I will talk to them a little bit more. And I will say, you know, I had one, she's my accountant, and one time, I said something to her where to the point of like, you just seem a little, are you okay? Like, is everything okay? And she's like, no one has asked me that. It's just like one of those things where,
Oh,
or
yeah.
no one has said that to me, and I actually needed someone to say that. And it was like something as simple as that. I didn't do anything other than kind of present that, and then she found the help that she needed, but I
Yeah.
think I don't know. I'm a believer in eye contact and continuously make checking in just by saying hello. And
Yeah.
because people will so easily want to just hide,
Hmm.
hide their feelings and their thoughts. And I don't know. It also makes me feel like I understand myself and my own emotions better by helping other people. So
So, if a listener takes away just one thing from our conversation today, what would you want it to be?
I think it's a matter of nobody is we're not perfect, we're a work in progress.
Mhm.
And everything from like our mental health to our physical health, everything is connected, and none of us are without problems. We all have something. And so and it's okay. And I think
Yeah.
the more you realize it, so for me, once I understood what it was, it really helped me to no longer feel afraid of it and afraid to even talk about it. So I think if you do have struggles or if you have worries, I think it's important to find out more where it comes from. And maybe it is a catastrophic thought, or maybe it's something else. But taking the time to think through all of it and then talk to someone about it. And I don't know. I think there's much less people are much more willing to talk about things now than they used to be for sure. But still, I think, I don't know. For the longest time, I just thought I was a worrier. And it does come from worry, but there might be something more to it. And then you learning and knowing more will help you through it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was like one thing. I think it's way too hard to have this one thing, but take care of yourself and think
Yeah.
about yourself.
So, where can people find your book?
You can purchase it on Amazon. You can either purchase like for your Kindle, or you can purchase it as like paperback. And yeah, it's available on there. And I've had a few friends already purchase it and talk to me about it, and it's been really cool. They found that they have similar ways of thinking, and they didn't know that was even that catastrophic thinking was even a thing. So it's really cool to again open up something new for people to consider and think about.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, talking about your own experiences and some practical tips for our listeners. And we will include the link to Brittany's book in the show notes for today. And I wish everyone the best. Hey there, if you're finding value in our podcast and want to dive deeper, I'd love to work with you through my coaching program. Together, we can tackle the challenges of running a dance studio and find your path to peace and profits as a business owner. Visit gingerhaithcox.com/coaching and get started today.